Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Mark Elbridge just added $10,000 to the cost of new housing. At last, there's a new police chief. County Council proposes that all legislation and public policy initiatives contain a racial equity impact statement. And who was hurt more by the leaked Ukraine phone call, President Trump or Vice President Joe Biden? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by education activist Cynthia Rubenstein, past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James, and local businesswoman and former nominee for delegate, Verelyn Gibbs Watson. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. There's been a lot happening in the county this week, and in the forefront is the announcement by County Executive Mark Elbridge that he wants to require that all new single-family homes have solar panels attached to their roofs. Elbridge, this county is already lacking in development of affordable housing, and the estimate for adding solar panels to all new homes is between $8,000 and $10,000. I realize that the county executive wants to save the world and save the planet, but don't we need housing that's affordable for Montgomery County residents?
Housing won't make a difference if you're dead because of pollution and climate problems.
Come on.
And $10,000 in this economy is a drop in the bucket.
Oh, really? It
$10,000.
is? So the people who are getting Fannie Mae loans and FHA loans, it's a drop in the bucket for those people?
It is.
It's a drop in the bucket for people who need mortgage insurance to buy a house, who can't come up with $2,000?
There's going to be
it's a drop in the bucket? That's insulting,
There's $100 a
Elbridge.
month savings on electricity. It balances itself off and it saves the economy and it saves the climate.
Oh, it does.
It's a good deal. And we eventually had to
Elbridge,
do it.
we have trees in Maryland. This isn't California where there are no trees. This isn't Nevada where it's a desert. We have trees. We have cloudy days. Why do you really think that
we have a
solar
moratorium
panels
on building
are going
houses.
to work?
We need to do everything we can. The clock is ticking on us.
Oh,
Montgomery
come
County
on.
is part of
Come
the world.
on. The clock is ticking. We have 10 years. Is that what you're saying? 7 years? What's your prediction, Elbridge? Are we going to be here in 7 years?
We're going to be here longer than that, and we take the right steps.
We've already passed the point of no return.
We got electric cars. We got electric cars. Why? Because it saves the economy.
Oh, yeah. And how are those electric cars charged, Elbridge? Where does the energy come for charging those cars? It comes from a coal plant. We're polluting the atmosphere in order to charge your cars, to charge your telephone,
Most
and
of the
to
plants
charge
are
all
turning
of
to
your
natural
electronic
gas.
devices.
You have plants that are turning to natural gas and other options.
Green run amok. Cynthia, experts say that the additional cost is only going to be between $40 and $50 to add to your mortgage. It's going to be nothing. Don't worry about it. Because you know what we're going to do? We're going to reduce your bill by at least $80. Now, these experts, they don't control the price of energy. They don't control the price of oil. So where are they going to be when energy prices skyrocket? You're going to have to pay higher energy bills, and you're going to have to pay higher mortgage costs. Is this going to get some pushback from the community?
This will get pushback, and certainly from the building industry and home builders. And there's already been some discussion about whether this is the best way to incentivize more solar power. There are questions about wouldn't it be more efficient and better to put solar farms in part of our ag reserve rather than piecemeal house by house. Also, we're not building a lot of houses right now. I think there were 1,000-something building permits allowed last year. And furthermore, this seems a little piecemeal rather than something that is more bang for the buck. There are lots of other things that I think the county council and the county executive could come up with that would be more, as you would say, low-hanging fruit.
It's just not single-family houses. It's all building, all new construction, including industrial and
that brings up another point.
That they want to do.
Most of the housing being built now is multifamily. There are also some questions about whether it should be a mandate or incentives.
Because people don't like being told what to do.
Because often people don't like being told what to
So
do.
Verelyn, when the solar panels break and they don't work anymore, are you going to send a bill to Mark Elbridge so he can repair them and the cost?
I mean, I know I definitely would, and my eyes kind of rolled back in my head when I thought about the expense if this kind of rolls over to the business community from a commercial standpoint. I mean, it's expensive enough to live in Montgomery County. It makes no sense to me that we're ratcheting up the cost even more.
Well, good. I want to put you on the spot one more time. Verelyn, Adam Pugnuccio, who periodically opines on county development issues, writes in Bethesda Magazine that the creation of a regional marketing and development authority by the 10 counties that surround Washington, D.C. is just another sign that Montgomery County is losing out in its competition for economic development. Why, as a businesswoman, why doesn't this county take development issues seriously?
So this is the song that I've been singing for the past 5 years since becoming a local business owner. And I think the challenge is the county thinks that they're getting it right. Even since Elric has been in, you know, he's done these conversations in an attempt to reach out to the business community, but it's a lot of times a lot of talk and not really understanding fundamentally of what goes into making a community or a city viable for a business. And one of the things that I've mentioned numerous times is that in the time since I lobbied to open my franchise in Montgomery County, even after being encouraged to open in Northern Virginia, since that time only one other has opened in Montgomery County, 4 have opened in Northern Virginia. So, you know, they're doing something right, and we really need to start looking at them as a case study if we want to survive.
So Elbridge, the county, they're not building any roads, it isn't encouraging development, and its tax base of wealthy residents is dying or moving away. Is there anybody on this county council that cares about this issue?
I think all the county council and the executive care about this issue. There's a difference of opinion in terms of how to approach it. And in terms of all the rich folks moving away, I have not heard a big glut on the market of these $10 million mansions. I think all are filled and vacant. I think all medium to upper class housing is selling well in Montgomery County. There is not this glut of inventory on the market. So a lot of people are not moving away.
Tax receipts are down, Elbridge.
Tax receipts are down for a number of different reasons. But bottom line is that the county is looking to adjust. My colleague here just said the county executive is having these discussions. He's got to learn, it's a change. He is moving, so in fact, he cares about all the county, but he has priorities, and those priorities are going to be addressed.
All right.
I just want to make sure my words aren't used against me in an incorrect way. What I was saying is, though, while it is good in effort, it's not necessarily the right way to use our time and energy, or the time and energy of the county council, to help make Montgomery County more viable for business.
So Cynthia, since Elbridge is brought into the county council as being on board with economic development, the state just eliminated the proposed rapid bus transit project from its budget. Now, if I were a cynical person, and you know that I'm not, I'd say that this move by the governor was in reaction to the county council and the county executive opposing the governor's plan to put hot lanes on the Beltway and I-270.
There may be a little bit of that, but the governor's public statement had more to do with the fact that the project was completely contained within Montgomery County, and it would not have a multi-jurisdictional impact and effect.
Do you really believe that?
I'm just telling you what the governor said in public. But I'll also tell you
this is payback.
that,
Come on.
that as Marilyn Balcom said in the Washington Post, and she's the head of the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce, we're dying up here.
Yeah.
They can't meet
I guess
their
because you're not in Tacoma
master
Park,
plan
the county
without
council
the
doesn't care about you.
infrastructure.
Is
They
that
can't
it?
get the infrastructure. They can't get the economic development and the drivers for more revenue for Montgomery County.
Well, come on. I mean, we all know what the game is. We know the game is that the county council and the executive only cares about Tacoma Park and lower Montgomery County.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with
Elbridge
that.
agrees with that, don't you?
No, but I do understand
We don't
this.
agree with that.
Yeah,
The
no, but
county council, there's something else that is hampering Montgomery County. We have had I think it's 3 or 4 economic development institutions, county sanctioned and formed. And we haven't figured it out yet.
Right, you are absolutely right. And when we come back from this short break, the County Council introduces Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, and impeachment fever grips the nation. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Last week, the County Council took up 2 proposals dealing with anti-discrimination and racial equality that were worthy of the headlines. Verelyn, one that got the most attention was the proposal from Councilman Will Jawando, he'd love to be a congressman, who introduced the Crown Act, or the Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act. It's alleged that the U.S. doesn't currently have a law that affords protection for race-based hair discrimination. Number 1, is there such discrimination? And number 2, aren't there already anti-discrimination laws that would cover this? So why do we need this legislation?
I knew this question was going to come to me, and
Yeah?
my response when I first heard about this on the news was, really? Really? And don't get me wrong. As a woman of color who has worked in corporate America at an executive level in markets such as DC and Los Angeles and New York, there absolutely, in general, is an unspoken rule that you have to assimilate and have a certain look to fit in that may dissuade you from wanting to be more natural with your hair. That is, I'm not saying that that's not a fact of life for many, many women of color, but in Montgomery County, I mean, in Montgomery County, you are discriminated against more for your political affiliation than you are for how you wanna wear your hair. So I just can't believe that this is what the county council was spending their time on, because I believe that if we polled 100 African American women and asked what was on the 10 top things of their list for priorities in the county, I don't think how they wear their hair was going to come up. You know, we have wonderful examples, beautiful women like Lupita Nyong'o, Viola Davis, even the CEO of Xerox, who wear their hair naturally, and it's not an issue. So I just think that this was more kind of a flashy.
What bothers me is
Yeah.
it trivializes
Yeah.
the time that the county council needs to spend on more important matters.
Right, and before you move on to something, I just want to say there is an impact that's going to come up to this because, for example, like in my business, we do have rules and standards around hair. It has nothing to do with the texture of your hair.
Those are health.
But no,
That's
I'm not even
health.
talking about health code. I'm talking about from a brand standpoint, your hair can't be a certain color. It can't be bright pink or bright orange because that's not in keeping with the brand.
That's not natural.
But what I'm saying is though, is once you create these kinds of rules and things, it starts to create this ripple effect that has unknown impact that you might not even consider.
Well, but understand, you may bring up a valid point, and we hope that the Chamber of Commerce, who are some of your representatives, can work with the county council to in fact allow for those exceptions,
this is just another
those things to come in
adopted
place.
initiative.
You know, and I mean the other
And
thing
we're
about
running
it,
out of time. I want to talk about the other piece of legislation. All 9 members of the county council co-sponsored the Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, which requires a racial equity impact statement on all legislation. Elbridge, is this really necessary? What is it supposed to do?
It's supposed to, as it says, bring racial and cultural equity into a lot of our processes. We have a county that has minority, majority, not just racial, but ethnic. And some of those standards or cultural ties are not recognized by
the law is going to look at the impact that the legislation has on the race-based community. What is that ideally going to accomplish?
It allows for those who are looking at the law and protecting the law and administering the law to think about their actions when they're working with somebody of a different race and culture. It allows for me, from a different race or culture, to understand and believe that the person I'm working with and enforcing, hear me out, Kirk, is I'm enforcing is looking at me.
I don't know if you're correct about that, because I think it's supposed to measure the impact that this piece of legislation has on the race community, not as a learning tool. We got to go to this break.
Better race relations.
So this is the beginning of a process. You know, if we don't take explicit action so that people, number one, become more aware, gain an understanding that this is not your grandmother's Montgomery County anymore, we're not
Cynthia,
going to make progress.
But Cynthia, I'm sorry, not every piece of legislation is designed to affect a single minority or a single class of people. This is, most legislation is for the greater good of the community. Why does it
the
have
good
to be
of the
based-
community, the definition of the community depends
the
on the eye
county.
of the
It's the
beholder
ca-
and
Oh my
the
goodness.
proposer.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm
And
actually
if
gonna.
you don't have an understanding of how we got here and how how our present impacts, this new Montgomery County that we have, then if we keep doing things the same way we've done them always, we aren't serving everyone.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say,
Wrap it up, 'cause
I'm
we gotta
gonna
go to the
agree.
next
I'm
topic.
actually going to agree with my colleagues here to an extent to say that it is important to consider the impact because with Montgomery County being a majority minority community, and minority doesn't just mean African American. We are so diverse,
Correct.
and there are so many things that we're doing that have an impact. The thing that we have to just be careful of is sometimes we get so into this analysis paralysis and so caught up in the impact statements and all this stuff,
That's what
and
I'm
we
afraid
forget
of.
the core
All right, we
of
got
what
to
we need to accomplish.
go to break and go to our next topic. Impeachment frenzy seems to have taken over much of the media. Those that loathed Donald Trump before he was president have new reason to want him out of office after the leaking of a private conversation that he had with the president of the Ukraine by a whistleblower. And those that think this rush to judgment is one more attempt by Democrats to overturn the 2016 election are outraged by this. So where does this leave the country? Cynthia, after 3 days of headlines, where are we?
Right now we're at kind of an impasse. Recent polling shows that about half of Americans think it's not worthwhile to go through impeachment and don't agree with it, and about another half think, yeah, we should go through the impeachment process. We don't know yet. We don't know what else is to come. I think there's a very small portion of persuadable electorate and public, probably about 15%, people who may be sick of Donald Trump and his antics, but don't think that what he's done, and even in this instance, reaches high crimes and misdemeanors. The real test is going to be November 2020. And my fear as a Democrat and a partisan is that the Democrats may win the battle and lose the war.
Well, how do they win the battle? They can impeach him.
They can impeach him. That would be winning the battle. But losing the war would be losing in 2020
And then having him
on the
reelected
presidential ticket.
After being impeached, is that losing the battle?
Casey, you
No,
know
losing
impeaching
the
doesn't
battle,
get-
losing the
kicking
war
him
is
out of the White
losing
House.
the
Because you know the
presidency.
Senate is not going to, in fact, convict him. You know
Won't
that
happen.
already.
So, but isn't this just a tired old story?
No.
Come on.
No, it's
The
propaganda.
Democrats have been
It's
trying
just-
to impeach
This
the
wasn't a
president
private
since
conversation. There were so many
November
people on the call here.
2016.
Impeachment
They've been talking
itself
about
is
it.
Call.
a partisan exercise. It's not a legal.
It's partisan. It is a partisan exercise.
It's a political exercise, not a legal exercise.
All right, Verelyn, CNN commentator and former CIA analyst Philip Mudd, whom I don't agree with hardly ever, denounced the report of the whistleblower's allegations as undermining national security, and that is a threat to future presidents. Why shouldn't the president's calls be private?
Well, I actually agree with that it does undermine national security, and I would feel that way if the president was a Democrat or if the president is a Republican, as the president is right now. I think the key thing about this whole issue is that, number one, obviously, yes, if there is something underhanded being done, there need to be appropriate and proper channels to make certain officials aware, but there needs to be a certain level of expectation of privacy if the president of the United States is to be able to gain the trust of potential allies in other countries. And I think that's the unfortunate part of this whole exercise, is that it's really undermining us once again on a world stage. Sometimes you got to keep your dirty laundry in-house.
But past administrations had their dirty laundry. But it didn't rise to the level where the president was the one who was throwing out the dirty laundry. Our presidents have stayed above the fray.
Have they really? Bill Clinton stayed above the fray
I'm
just asking. Bill Clinton stayed above the fray
On
when
national
he engaged,
security?
when he engaged,
National security?
when he engaged
National
in
security?
an inappropriate relationship
National
with an
security?
intern? Listen.
National security.
Okay.
National
okay.
security.
All right. Now we want to.
Well, this
National
is-
He didn't get us into a war in Bosnia.
No, but
No,
here's
I
the.
guess he stayed out of national security there.
The crux of this issue, even if you don't, there are all kinds of wrong about that conversation. Number one, having Rudy Giuliani, a personal lawyer, involved in these matters, sending him to Ukraine, and
He can't be
secondly,
appointed
the
a special
president is
envoy?
very clearly not doing the work of the American people on that phone call. He's doing the work of, how do I help myself, Donald Trump, today?
Like I said in the opening, Cynthia, that those who want to get rid of Donald Trump are convinced that phone
I want a
conversation-
president who's doing the work on behalf of the American
those
people
that don't-
and not
that-
abusing
those
his
that
power
believe-
for his personal gain.
There are those that read that conversation entirely different. But I want to go to...
When they're wrong.
Of course they are, in your opinion. Brother Elbridge, aren't you at all troubled that the Vice President Biden played a role in interfering a criminal investigation by the Attorney General of Ukraine to have him removed from office for the benefit of his son? Doesn't that
Supposedly.
trouble you at all?
Supposedly, and as much as it might ask me the question, I can see a father trying to reach out and protect his son.
As Vice President of the United States.
As the current
As Vice
president.
President of the United States.
Was he current vice president
He
or
was
afterwards?
the current Vice President of the United States. Do you think...
Do we
he
have the
threatened-
transcript? Do we have the transcript and all the
Here's
detailed
what we have.
information?
Here's what we have, Elbridge. We have Joe Biden on tape at the Council of Foreign Affairs bragging that he had the guy fired. He said, I told them they weren't going to get their $1.1 billion unless they fired that guy, and I'm leaving in 6 hours. And if you don't believe me, you call Barack Obama, and he'll tell you that he's going to back me up on this. And he goes, and guess what? They fired the guy before I had to leave. We have that on tape. So let's not sugarcoat this and pretend that it didn't happen. And you know what, Cynthia? You're not going to be able to have the last word because we're going to break. Stay tuned for Parting Shots.
Shucks.
And welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Cynthia Rubenstein.
All right, today is a shout out to our student member of the Board of Education, Nate Tinbite, who made his first policy proposal this week, asking that high school athletes receive credit for physical education by being high school athletes. It's a wonderful proposal. He really has his finger on the pulse of MCPS students, and I hope it passes and becomes statute or whatever it becomes through MCPS. So way to go, Nate.
Thank you, Cynthia. Elbridge, your parting shot, please.
I do also want to thank our high school students. Many of them turned out for the push for a cleaner world and peace, and they're taking these issues very seriously versus being frivolous and doing football season and other things. I think we have good leadership coming up in the pipeline.
Thank you, Elbridge. Verelyn, your parting shot.
All right. Last but not least, I definitely want to give a huge shout out to the Montgomery County Police Department and its officers for doing so much to try and be part of the local communities. They are going around to local business establishments to set up different information sessions for the community to come out. No agenda is just a chance to engage and talk with your community officers. So great job, keep up the great work, and thanks for all you do.
And I want to thank the panel for being here. I know we share divergent views, but the nice thing is that we're able to exercise and talk about these things. So many people can't even coexist in the same room with somebody from the other party. I know I have lots of friends that won't speak to me because I believe, look, I understand this, because I have a different point of view than they do. And it's too bad. I think the political atmosphere and the political tone has really gotten terrible. But I want to thank you for being here because that's the whole purpose for this show. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.